I wanted to do a quick chapter addressing marine invertebrates since their anatomy is a little different from the bony fish and other animals with skeletal structures. So let's look at some cephalopods. These animals do have bilateral symmetry, but due to their very round and organic forms, we have to pay close attention to the volume. So instead of just studying the side view, I'm actually going to go right into studying the form. Here's some examples of basic form breakdowns for cephalopods. I'm dividing up the body, eyes, and tentacles, and I'm attaching the eyes on top of the head through a cylinder. For these tentacles, I'm going to set a main direction line to group most of the limbs, then have a couple going off in their own direction to add a more dynamic feel. Let's also break down the tentacle itself. We're going to start with a cylinder that tapers towards the end, but make sure to establish the separation of the side that the suction cups will sit on. They're just going to be portrayed through elevated ellipses like this, and as the limb rotates, we'll see less and less of them. And let's do a full render of an octopus. I'm going to start with a rounded shape for the body and the eyes, and a direction line for the limbs. Next, I'm going to introduce some form sensitivity and some texture around the edges here. Because this animal is slightly bumpy all the way around, I do want to interrupt that silhouette and not make it so completely smooth, but I'm going to be looking for any kinds of bumps or angles and try to really emphasize those. And this will help maintain some believability in your sketch. It's not completely necessary to render out all the texture, and that's actually going to oversaturate the sketch and flatten out the form. So we want to include areas of negative space so the eyes can rest. Just include some texture around the focal point, pulling up from the shadow shape. If you look back on the previous chapter where we were lighting basic forms, you can follow that lighting setup for a rounded form and assign a similar shadow shape onto the octopus. And for the placement of these shadow shapes, I'm focusing on the underside of the octopus and the tentacles that are on the other side, and we're just going to flatten those with a solid value. And I'm also going to add a little bit of rotation on the tentacles and simplify the suction cups as well since they're further away from the head. And on a lot of cephalopods, you're going to see that these suction cups are so dense that you might actually have to render it as a continuous texture rather than simplifying it into these individual shapes, but that's totally up to you. And for your cephalopod study, don't feel pressured to stick so closely to your reference. Like we saw in this demo, you can actually just create your own composition from the body and the eyes and just fill in the gaps from your reference photos. And next up, we'll be going into more structured animals, starting with birds. Bye guys, I'll see you in the next video.